Welcome, everyone, to the LEOR Super Fun Learning Hour. Thrilled to have you with us. Today, we're kicking off something special, the first deep dive in our brand new seminar series. We're tackling a really big one, the Oedipal triangle. And we're starting right at the source, well, a key source anyway, Sigmund Freud's 1924 paper, The Dissolution of the Oedipus Complex. Our goal today, to really unpack how Freud understood this crucial childhood phase, how it forms us and leaves this lasting imprint on, well, everything, our morals, our relationships.
Absolutely. And it's really helpful to remember the timing here. Freud wrote this paper right after The Ego and the Id in 1923. So
Yeah.
It's not just floating out there. It's very much him refining his big picture ideas, his metapsychology. He's showing how these really intense childhood emotions, they don't just vanish. They actively, reshape our inner world. They build the psyche, essentially.
Right, it's like this critical turning point. The moment our earliest, most basic desires kind of hit the wall of reality. And how that all gets sorted out, or maybe doesn't entirely get sorted out, that's what echoes through our whole lives. It's like the psychological bedrock.
Exactly. Just as a quick refresher for everyone, Freud initially saw the Oedipus complex as this peak period, intense but temporary, usually hitting around ages 3 to 5, part of what he called infantile sexuality. And for a boy specifically, it's this unconscious desire for his mother. She's the first love object, right? Source of everything. But at the same time, there's this intense rivalry with the father, a hostility even, because the father is seen as this powerful competitor for the mother's attention. It's a whole unconscious drama playing out. Very potent stuff, even if it's buried.
So it's definitely not just like a passing crush. It's this really formative emotional storm, you could say, something every kid has to navigate. And it lays down these fundamental tracks for who we become psychologically.
Intense conflict, like you said.
Okay, so here's where the 1924 paper gets really interesting. How does a boy get past this huge pull towards the mother, the rivalry with the dad? What's the mechanism Freud identified? What makes it dissolve?
Right. Well, for boys, Freud pinned it primarily on one major force, the castration complex. And for Freud, this wasn't just symbolic. He meant a real, deeply felt fear. The boy genuinely fears losing his penis and sees the father, the rival, as the source of that threat.
Wow. Okay, so a very concrete physical fear.
Very concrete. Freud describes it almost as an existential terror for the boy. It's this perceived danger that really forces him to give up those incestuous wishes for the mother.
Right.
And also to give up the aggressive feelings towards the father. It's not a gentle letting go. It's more like a traumatic break. The cost of keeping those desires just seems too high and too dangerous.
That's a really striking word Freud uses, that the complex is destroyed, not just, pushed down or repressed.
Exactly. That's a key point he makes for boys. It's not just repression. It's a more active, forceful overcoming.
So what comes out of that destruction? You mentioned it leads to some really crucial developments.
Absolutely. Two massive things emerge from this resolution via castration anxiety. First, the superego. This is the internal moral compass, the conscience. Freud literally called it the heir to the Oedipus complex. It's formed by internalizing the parents' rules, their prohibitions, their ideals. It's born out of that fear and renunciation.
Yeah.
And because Freud saw that fear as so sharp and terrifying for boys, he argued their superego tends to be, well, more rigid, more defined, sterner, maybe.
Okay, that makes sense. The
Yeah.
internal judge born from fear. And the second thing,
The second thing is identification with the father. So by giving up the fight, the boy starts to identify with the father. He takes on his qualities, his values, his perceived strength. It's how he secures his own masculinity, his place in the world. He shifts from being a rival to being sort of the inheritor, psychologically becoming the figure he once feared. This really cements his gender identity and moral framework, according to Freud.
that's a very dramatic picture, almost violent psychologically speaking. But what about girls? You mentioned Freud saw their path as quite different. How does it work for them if they don't have that same specific fear of castration driving things?
Right, it's a significantly different map Freud draws for girls. He argued they don't experience castration anxiety the same way because, well, they perceive themselves as already castrated. They notice the anatomical difference, the lack of a penis. And this realization, this sense of lack, leads to what he famously and controversially called penis envy, which isn't just literal envy. It's tied up with feelings of inferiority, maybe resentment towards the mother.
Okay, so the starting point is this perceived lack, not a fear of loss. How does that change the trajectory?
It changes it quite a bit. Initially, the girl identifies with her mother, similar to the boy, but then because of this penis envy, she often turns away from the mother, sometimes even blaming the mother for her perceived deficiency. This then fuels the female Oedipus complex. She turns her desire towards the father. He's seen in this framework as someone who has the desired object, the penis. Or as a substitute, the desire shifts towards wanting a baby from the father. That becomes a way to symbolically gain what was missing.
So the resolution sounds different, too. You said for boys, it's destroyed by this sharp fear. How does it end for girls in Freud's view?
Exactly. It's much less decisive, according to Freud. There isn't that single terrifying threat like castration to force a clean Drake. So for girls, he described the complex as often being repressed or just sort of fading out more gradually over time. It doesn't get destroyed in the same way.
Which connects back to what you said about the superego.
Right. Precisely. Because there isn't that same intense fear-driven destruction, Freud suggested, and this is one of his most debated points, that the superego in girls tends to be less rigid, less severe, perhaps less fully formed than boys. Because the catalyst, that overwhelming threat, isn't there in the same way to forge it so strongly. It's really fascinating and, problematic for many later thinkers, how he links these huge psychological structures directly to perceived anatomy. The long-term implications he saw were enormous.
Okay, so we've got these intense childhood dramas, different paths for boys and girls. What does it all mean once we're adults? Does it just fade away? Or does it leave like a permanent mark on us? How does this early stuff keep influencing us?
Oh, it definitely leaves a mark, according to Freud. The way the Oedipus complex dissolves is seen as this absolutely critical milestone. It shapes your fundamental character, your moral framework, the superego we talked about, and very importantly, your future object choices. Basically, how you choose partners, how you experience love and intimacy as an adult. The patterns established back then tend to repeat, often unconsciously.
So it's not just a phase you outgrow.
Not at all. It's more like a foundational structure in your unconscious life. It keeps echoing. Those early dynamics, those conflicts and resolutions, they leave traces. They influence your choices, your anxieties, maybe your neuroses, your deepest desires, often in ways you're not even aware of. You might find yourself drawn to certain types of people, for instance, who unconsciously remind you of those early figures. Or you might replay old conflicts with authority figures.
That's a really powerful image, like the foundations of a house, like we said earlier. You don't see them, but they affect the whole building, how stable it is, how it weathers things.
Exactly. Freud believed those early psychological structures dictate so much about our adult personality, our capacity for connection, our resilience.
It really puts things in perspective. Understanding this dissolution process helps you see how those very early family dynamics, those first intense feelings just keep rippling outwards, shaping who we are long, long after childhood.
It shows just how deeply our past is woven into our present. These unconscious forces are always, in a sense, active within us.
Well, this has been an absolutely fascinating deep dive into Freud's The Dissolution of the Oedipus Complex. We've traced those distinct paths, the boy's journey driven by castration anxiety leading to that destruction and superego formation, and the girl's path shaped by penis envy leading to a more gradual repression. And seeing how profoundly Freud linked all this to adult life, to our relationships, our identity, it's quite something.
It really is. He saw these early patterns as the absolute blueprint for so much of our inner world.
It's incredible, really, how these ideas from, a century ago still provoke so much thought.
Definitely. And maybe a final thought for you to ponder is this. How might these deep, often unconscious traumas from early childhood continue to play out? Not just in our individual lives or personal struggles and relationships, but maybe even in our wider society, in our cultural ideas about gender, about authority, about morality. How much of the world we navigate today might still be shaped by the echoes of these ancient Oedipal struggles?
That's a great question to leave us with. Thank you so much for joining us on the LEOR Super Fun Learning Hour. We hope you'll keep thinking about the enduring power of these early psychological formations. Until next time.